Do you own a small business? Are you considering forming your own small business, and should you? What is a small business, and what are the benefits small business owners enjoy? How can you get help as a small business owner, even with some of your legal costs? My guest in this program is the Commissioner for Small Businesses in New York, Gregg Bishop. Commissioner, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure people have lots of questions for you whenever they can get hold of you.
Yeah, I'm sure, and they do.
I'm sure they do. We want to talk about not only the issues that affect small businesses, but we want to talk about some of the services that you offer.
Sure.
And I know you're going to say that you offer services not just to small businesses, but workforce services and also neighborhoods.
Sure.
But let's talk about the small business services that you offer.
Yep. So the Department of Small Business Services, we are the city agency that's responsible for advocating for small businesses. So we provide 9 set of services for entrepreneurs and for business owners to help them start, expand, and operate their businesses. So in those verticals, there's a number of things from education. So I like the fact that you started off by saying, should you start a business?
Right.
And that's one of the things that we do challenge individuals with some of our courses in terms of, do you have a plan? Why are you starting a business? Do you have a roadmap in terms of how to start the business? And then we actually handhold individuals throughout that process. So not only educating them on how to start their business, so we have courses, for example, 10 steps to starting a business, or fast track new venture, where someone comes out with a plan in terms of how to start that business. But then we connect them with other courses like roadmap to financing. So how are you actually going to fund that business? Then we also connect them with other courses like QuickBooks, to help them actually keep their books together,
Yes.
figure out in what, in terms of, income statements and all the things that small business owners need to understand. And certainly if you're trying to start a restaurant, for example, we have restaurant boot camps. We have different courses all across the spectrum. So the analogy I use is just like college, right? So another service that we offer is on our financing side. A lot of businesses and a lot of our small businesses are 10 or less employees. So they don't have a relationship with a bank. They don't have a relationship with an attorney. And we help them actually with getting financing. One of the things that I'm always asked is whether or not we have grants, and unfortunately we don't.
You don't.
So no, we don't. But we do have a network of 40 lenders, and certainly we can help businesses actually connect to the right lender. So for example, for women entrepreneurs here in the city, we've made a concerted effort to actually address some of the issues that women entrepreneurs face in terms of starting their business, running their business. And one of the things we announced a couple months ago was a partnership that we have with an organization called Kiva Zip. And the city is actually putting up the first 10% of a loan request, which is important because, when you have someone that's backing the loan request, the success of that loan origination becomes much easier. So Kiva, if you're a micro business, for example, and you're looking to buy pieces of equipment, that's a perfect partner for us because they have loans up to $10,000.
You said that's
Kiva. Yeah, Kiva, Kiva, Zip. But the thing about what I want people to understand is that small business services, and we deliver these services through our NYC Business Solution Centers. We're your advocate. A lot of business owners spend an enormous amount of time searching for the right lender, searching for capital, searching for people, searching for resources, and we already are equipped. All they need to do is just call 311 or go to nyc.gov/SBS and connect to our services. We already did the homework in terms of figuring out what's the right lender. We'll sit down with the entrepreneur, we'll do an assessment of their credit profile and their capital need, and we'll certainly connect to the right lender. And if their credit is to the point where we can't connect to a lender, then we also work with our other city agency, Department of Consumer Affairs, to actually help them repair their credit.
You do a lot of work.
We do a lot. And that's just 2 parts of the services of the 9 set of services that we offer. So we also help with incentives. We help with navigating government. We help with our legal services, which we could talk about as well. We also help with recruitment to help business owners actually find employees, and we also help businesses understand how to sell to government, and that's through either the state, the city, or the federal government. And we also have our Minority Women Business Enterprise Program. So there's a huge array of services and menu items that entrepreneurs can pick from. I always say New York City is the most resource city for an entrepreneur.
So even though it's called small business, your operation is not small.
It's not small at all.
It's
not small at all. As a matter of fact, we also have workforce services as well, where we help New Yorkers find jobs and actually train New Yorkers. But we could talk about that as well.
Yes. How do you do that?
So we have
the
workforce services.
Yes.
So we do it through our Workforce One centers. We have about 22 centers across the city. But I think the model that we have is a very unique model. So we work with the businesses. So because we are helping businesses start, because we're helping businesses grow, because we're tapped into the business community, we can ask businesses, what are the skill sets that you're looking for? What are some of the jobs that you're going to be hiring over the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years? And we've made a very concerted effort to focus on sectors that are fast growing or sectors that we know that individuals can earn a decent living. So that's sectors like healthcare, that's technology, that's construction.
You answered my question.
That's industrial and manufacturing. That is areas, even food and beverage. New York City is a fantastic city to go out and have a good time. We have the restaurant industry is important to the city. And they have a shortage of line cooks, for example. So we've created programs, either training programs to address the workforce shortage, or because we know the skill sets, we then, through our Workforce One centers, help screen employees for those jobs.
What are the business areas that someone's trying to start their own business would be advised to go into or may want to go into?
So, it's interesting in terms of New York is such a diverse city. We have 8.5 million people. And everyone has their own special needs. So it all depends. What I advise business owners is if you're thinking about going to business, do the research and make sure you actually go into business where it will be successful. So, for example, if you're passionate about a certain product or providing a certain service, you're going to put your 100% of your effort into running that business. To answer your question, you could start a business doing almost anything in New York City, but one of the things you need to figure out is there a demand? And what I tell folks is that...
Do you help them make that determination?
Well, we don't really tell individuals that you should actually start a business in this particular sector.
You should not start in this one.
Well, what we do is during your, for example, 10 steps to starting a business class or fast track new venture, we're going to ask you a couple questions. And by the time we're done with you, you'll realize, wait, I don't have the projections for this business. So even though this is a labor of love, this may not be the right business for me to start. So we're going to equip you to actually answer that question on your own.
Now, you said you also help employees as well, and you connect them with small businesses.
Right. So we help employees of small businesses. So, for example, and this is a perfect example where, technology has changed the landscape of everything, right? We've seen how technology has disrupted the for-hire car business, for example. We've seen how technology has disrupted the restaurant industry in terms of delivery services, et cetera. So we know that as technology advances, some small businesses need assistance in terms of getting their employees trained with new technology. So, for example, a small business might install a new point-of-sale system, and they need to train their employees on how to actually effectively use that. So we cover 75% of the cost of that training. So a small business can actually request and create a customized training program for their business, and then we actually will review it. And if there's a certain cost to it, we'll cover 75% of that cost. So we help small businesses adapt to the different changes in technology. That's just an example.
So what is the relationship really that you have with small businesses, small businesses? And let's talk about how large businesses you have here in New York City.
Right.
But the relationship with a person who wants to start a small business and the relationship that you continue to have with small businesses as they remain small or as they grow.
So, I always think of us as the advocate for
You did say that earlier.
right
Advocacy.
for the small business, right? So we are the agency that any small business in New York City, and this is why I'm so happy to be on this show, is to just raise awareness that not only these services are available, but a lot of times, a lot of small business owners, either they don't know what they don't know, or for example, if they have a question, they don't know who to ask. And certainly that is our role. And they have access to not only all the set of services, but if a small business has an issue with a city agency, we are there to actually help that small business. And with the large businesses, we help them actually find the talent that they need. So we're all over we play both roles on both sides of the spectrum.
Yes. You say that you invest in small business and in neighborhood organizations. How do you do this?
So that's for example, and that's on our neighborhood side. We, in the past, Small Business Services was known as the Department of Business Services. And we actually help shepherd the legislative process to create business improvement districts. These are areas where a separate entity, independent entity has been created, funded by additional assessment on the properties in that area to provide additional services. It could be sanitation, it could be security, et cetera. Usually customers, individuals, New Yorkers will know they're in a bid. For example, during the holidays, you see like the holiday lights, for example. So those are things that's done to help create a vibrant commercial corridor.
That's done through you as well?
So we help shepherd that process.
Okay.
The legislative process is actually done through the property owners who create a steering committee and then the council member. But we actually help create that process. However, if that is not done, there's another way businesses can actually organize, and that's through a merchant or association. And we have funding available to actually help create that merchant organization, or if there's a merchant organization that's already established, to help fund initiatives. So in certain neighborhoods, a merchant organization may want to have, like, for example, a festival. That festival will bring individuals to that particular corridor. And of course, when people are there, they're going to shop and support small businesses. So we have a program called Avenue NYC, where we've invested over about $1.3 million in Avenue NYC, in neighborhoods all across the city. And certainly our focus is low to moderate income areas. But if there's an organization that's out there that's interested, they can go to nyc.gov/SBS. Applications are open right now. They're closing shortly, but certainly individuals can submit an application for one of those grants. That's one of the few areas where we do have grants available for organizations, nonprofits.
One of the few. What are the other areas where you have grants? Because small businesses are always looking for grants.
Right. So we work with other partners. So what we usually do, for example, the Brooklyn Public Library has a business plan competition where we actually help small business owners compete in that area, and then they get it's an award, but we consider it like a grant to actually run their business. There are other organizations like the Libra Group, for example, where they focus on small businesses in the South Bronx. So we know different areas where organizations independent to the government that actually have funding available for small businesses in terms of in the form of grants.
Do you help small businesses to be able to compete with larger businesses, larger organizations?
So one of the things that, in terms of our services,
Yes.
We help small businesses identify sort of the way they actually can compete. So, for example, and I'll give you an example in terms of our Minority and Women Business Enterprise Program. One of the things that we want to make sure is that small businesses develop an effective business development strategy. So that the way they can grow their business. So after you're certified as a minority and women-owned business, we connect you to our staff, and we come up with a plan in terms of which government agencies you should actually focus your efforts on. So that, in a way, is actually helping you create a competitive advantage, because if you have this information, then you're more surgical in terms of where you do your business development. And I've seen companies actually win contracts and grow versus a company that's not certified or doesn't take advantage of that service, who, they're knocking on every agency door, and of course that takes up more of their time. So certainly certification has its benefits, and that's just one of the ways we help companies actually compete.
Earlier we talked, not in detail, about businesses being helped in determining what area they should seek to operate in. What are the major growth areas among small businesses?
So it depends on the neighborhood, and the reason why I say it depends on the neighborhood, obviously we know like the healthcare industry is growing. We know tech is really big, and tech is growing in New York City. But for example, we have the food and beverage sector. New York City is a global city. We have millions of tourists that come into New York City, domestically and internationally. So if you, for example, wanted to start a restaurant, that's certainly one of the areas where, if you are surgical and you actually know the right location and the right type of menu, you can be successful. But again, we want to make sure that you understand the different regulations that you have to be in compliance with, because a lot of times entrepreneurs go with their gut, right? So I'm walking down the street, I see a particular empty storefront, and I'm like, that's where I want to open up my business. I hurry up and I find out who the landlord is. I get a lease from the landlord, and I just sign the lease. And I don't realize that there's a whole bunch of responsibilities that the landlord put on me instead of the landlord. So that's one of the reasons why we created and expanded our commercial lease program, to really make sure that we help entrepreneurs when they are thinking about starting their business in the particular location, that they have the protections to actually get a fair lease.
I saw this quotation recently. Entrepreneurship is a word that means you're going to work, you're going to take risk, and you're going to be disappointed sometimes because it's a big commitment.
Oh, yeah. It's a huge commitment. And certainly I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs. It's a 24-hour job. Entrepreneurs go to sleep thinking about what's my next step, in the morning. They're working on the weekends. But the rewards are great. And certainly we want to make sure that we have the resources to actually help our entrepreneurs become successful.
And a person starting up a small business, they understand that they're an entrepreneur.
We hope. Well, by the time they finish our courses, they'll know that they're an entrepreneur. But it's a serious undertaking, and that's why we want to make sure that individuals understand what it is that they need in order to become successful. One of the things we were talking about is that when I talk to entrepreneurs, I always say, well, why are you starting a business? What's your exit strategy? Are you starting the business to pass it on to a family member, or are you starting the business to sell that business? Because depending on what your exit strategy is, will depend on how you run your business and how aggressive you are in terms of growing that business. So there's a number of things that we want to make sure entrepreneurs are aware of.
What kind of services do you provide for immigrants who want to start up their own services?
Well,
I know this is a very touchy.
No. I'm glad you actually raised that question, because we are, and the mayor's been very focused on and very clear that New York City welcomes immigrants. I'm an immigrant. When I talked about 230,000 small businesses, almost actually over half of those businesses, but the percentage is now up to 52% of small businesses here in New York City are owned and operated by foreign-born New Yorkers. So certainly immigrants are important to our small business community, and most of our services are actually available to immigrant communities. We have a special guide that we actually produced that's available online for an immigrant guide to entrepreneurship that not only talks about the services that we offer, but also the rights as an immigrant in New York City. And all our services are available in the 10 languages that the city is required to provide services in. So certainly there's a lot of opportunities for immigrant entrepreneurs, and we typically work with organizations that are embedded in immigrant communities to make that initial connection.
There's a recent situation where we hear that business owners are being squeezed by landlords. And I know that you have an initiative that's targeted towards this and providing assistance to these business owners who are having these difficulties with landlords. You want to speak about that?
Yeah. So it's our commercial lease assistance program. And what we did was we always provided legal services to businesses and entrepreneurs. Most of that legal services were provided on a pro bono basis. And really it was typically to help with structure. So whether or not you wanted to form an LLC or S Corp, and contract reviews and cursory lease reviews. What we've done is we've actually committed additional to about $2.4 million over the next 2 years to expand that legal services. So instead of like the hour that you have with an attorney, now you can have as many hours as you can. We think most of the time it's about an average about 40 hours that you need, not only help with lease negotiations so you can get a fair lease, but to deal with other issues. So for example, if you've been served an eviction notice, to have an attorney to represent you and work out a fair and amicable deal, resolving landlord issues, navigating the lease renewal process. So what we have found is that small business owners, like I said, don't have the necessary resources to actually, connect and have an attorney on retainer. So the city, and I wanted to also thank our members in council. About 2 years ago, Councilmember Robert Cornegie, who was the former chair of the Small Business Committee, was able to move legislation to actually pass a tenant harassment bill. And that has now quantified what harassment looks like. So now, commercial property owners are protected, and small business owners are protected from harassment. But it's much more than just harassment. It's, it's actually before you sign a lease, like the individual who's walking around and, has that gut feeling. Well, come to us first, and then we'll have an attorney that will help you actually get a fair lease, right? We want you to understand what property taxes are going to be passed through. We want you to understand what you're liable for. We want to make sure that you're well protected as you're going into a relationship, while you're in a relationship. And, it happens across the city, if the relationship sours, that you're protected. We've had small businesses that, it's had oral agreements. And of course, you know what happens with oral agreements. Right. And they've used our services and they've come out with like a 10-year lease, for example. So we know the service works, and it's always helpful to have an attorney on your side.
We only have a minute left, and we don't have enough time.
We didn't even start chipping on the side.
I'm going to have you back.
Well, I'm happy to come back.
Because I wanted to talk more about the Compliance Advisor Program. And
yes.
I know you referred to it earlier.
Yeah. So one of the things that the mayor really focused on was reducing fines to small businesses. So now we've moved into a proactive role in terms of sending staff out to help businesses understand how to be in compliance with city regulations. But we also, through our Small Business First initiative, we're looking to streamline regulations all across the city. So our compliance advisors are free. They come out to small businesses. They'll help you prepare for either inspection with the health department or DCA, and they'll point out things that could result in a fine. So we've helped over 3,500 businesses since the program launched 2 years ago, and we pointed out enough violations that would have amounted to almost $25 million in fine. And that's money that those businesses have saved.
And that they need to have.
Whether
they're keeping it or passing it on to somebody else.
Well, we hope that they're passing it on to someone. Oh, I don't know.
Or reinvesting.
Right. But hopefully they're paying their taxes too.
That's
we could talk about it. Right. Yes.
Exactly. Gregg Bishop, the Commissioner for Small Businesses in New York. I want to thank you. Listen,
half an hour is just not enough.
No, obviously not. Obviously not. You can soon watch this program on our YouTube site. We'll let you know. Just go to our Facebook page, and we'll have that information there. Please visit our Facebook page, like us, and post your comments about this program, and tell us about some topics you would like us to feature on upcoming Brooklyn 45 programs. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I'm Sam Tate.